It was a quiet anniversary. Not cold, not distant, just quiet. We'd decided on a simple dinner at home this year. No restaurants, no big reservations, no overpriced steaks we wouldn't finish. I had lit 2 candles in the center of the table, and he brought home takeout from the Thai place we both liked, the one where he always ordered for me without asking, because he knew my taste better than I did. I had put on a soft dress, something pale and clean, something that made me feel a little like the woman I was when we first met, someone softer around the edges. He wore the same shirt he always wore when he wanted to look put together without trying too hard, and we pretended, for a moment, that everything was good. Halfway through dinner, he said he had something for me. I raised an eyebrow. We hadn't planned gifts this year. At least, that's what he told me 2 weeks ago. Let's not overthink it this time, he had said. Let's just enjoy being together. But now he was reaching into his coat and pulling out a small black velvet box, the kind of box that clicks shut with a sound that makes your heart hold its breath. He placed it on the table in front of me, smiling like he was proud of himself. "Open it," he said. I did. Inside were earrings, delicate, gold, with tiny diamond-like stones at the center, the kind of design that looked expensive without screaming it. They were beautiful. Too beautiful. I stared at them for a second, unsure what to say. He took my silence as awe, which I suppose it was, in a way. "You like them?" he asked. I nodded. "I love them," I said, though the word came out with less certainty than I wanted. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate the gesture. It was that something in me bristled, faintly, like a wrong note in a familiar song. I couldn't place it. "They're from that place on 7th, he added. "Took me forever to pick the right ones." I smiled and thanked him, leaned over the table to kiss him. He smiled again, pleased with himself, and we went back to our pad thai and shared laughter about a show we'd been watching. For a little while, it felt good. Normal. Sweet, even. A kind of peace I hadn't felt in weeks. There had been tension lately, small things, unspoken things, nights where he went to bed early or stayed on his phone a little too long. But that night, he was present. He looked me in the eyes. He complimented my dress. He held my hand during dessert. And the earrings, glittering softly in their little black box, felt like a promise that maybe we were finding our way back. After dinner, I tried them on. He watched me from the couch, nodding approvingly. "They look perfect on you," he said. "Like they were made for you." I wore them for the rest of the night. Even when I washed the dishes. Even when I curled up beside him to finish the last episode of the show. Even when he fell asleep first and I stayed up a little longer, staring at my reflection in the hallway mirror, tilting my head left and right, wondering what it was about those earrings that still made my chest tighten, just a little. I told myself it was guilt. That maybe I had just gotten too used to not expecting anything. That I was overthinking again. It wasn't until the next morning that I understood what I was actually feeling. It wasn't awe. It was recognition. The morning after our anniversary, I woke up before him. Sunlight was just beginning to slip through the blinds, soft and golden, painting long lines across the floor. He was still sleeping, sprawled across his side of the bed like someone without a single weight on his chest. I slipped out quietly, careful not to wake him. My son from a previous marriage was at his dad's for the weekend, so the apartment was still, almost unnaturally quiet. I made coffee, fed the cat, and curled into the corner of the couch with a blanket and my phone, the way I always did when I had the rare gift of silence. I wasn't looking for anything. That's the part that always stings, somehow. I wasn't searching. I wasn't snooping. I was just scrolling through stories and reels like any other Saturday. Faces I half recognized, weddings of people I hadn't spoken to in years, vacation reels from girls I didn't really like. And then, without warning, there she was. His ex. Not a stranger. Not someone from long ago. The one he had dated right before me. The one he told me he was over. The one he claimed had broken his heart, and that he had finally healed from just before we got serious. She had gone quiet online a few months ago, which, frankly, I appreciated. It made things less messy. But there she was again now, suddenly very present, posting to her story like no time had passed. It was a mirror selfie. Her bathroom, soft white tiles in the background, a linen robe wrapped loosely around her. And her face, perfectly angled, as if she knew the exact millimeter of chin tilt that would make her look just undone enough to feel casual but still beautiful. I almost swiped past it. But then I froze. Because of the earrings. I brought the phone closer to my face, blinked twice. No. I wasn't imagining it. They were the same ones. Identical. Small gold hoops with a tiny square-cut diamond in the middle, sitting just below the earlobe. I knew that shape. I had worn them just hours ago. I had touched them, tilted them under the bathroom light. I knew every line of them. And there they were, catching the morning light in her mirror selfie, captioned with 6 words. Some gestures are never really forgotten. My stomach dropped. It didn't feel like coincidence. It didn't feel like style overlap. It felt intentional. Like a quiet whisper aimed directly at me. I clicked back through her story. A boomerang of a wine glass. A shot of a boutique bag on her countertop. Then another mirror video, this time showing the same black velvet box I had opened at dinner. Sitting near her perfume tray. Same brand stamp. Same shape. Everything matched. My hands were suddenly ice. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. I stood, phone still in hand, and walked to the bathroom mirror. I had taken the earrings off the night before and left them beside my toothbrush. I picked them up slowly, turned them in the light, and whispered out loud, no. Because this wasn't a maybe. This wasn't a similar pair. He had either bought the exact same ones for her, or worse, they had originally been hers. I stared at myself in the mirror. At the woman he'd kissed across a dinner table 12 hours earlier. At the woman who had smiled like she mattered. At the woman who now had the cold suspicion that the gift meant for her had been recycled from someone else's love story. And suddenly, the anniversary didn't feel like a celebration anymore. It felt like a cover-up. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, earrings in one hand, phone in the other, trying to make sense of the timeline in my head. When did he buy them? When had he last seen her? Had he been in contact with her recently? Or was this some leftover relic from a time he said he was done with? My mind spiraled, slow at first, then faster, because that's what doubt does. It starts as a flicker and then it burns. I opened our shared Amazon account. Nothing. He rarely used it anyway, said he didn't like leaving a trail. So I checked the jewelry store he mentioned the night before, the one on 7th, searched for the brand. Found it. The exact earrings. Same black velvet box, same small gold hoop with a tiny square-cut stone. They weren't cheap. But they weren't one of a kind either. That made it worse. Anyone could buy them. For anyone. But he said he spent time choosing them. Said he picked them for me. Said they looked like me. I went to the hallway closet where he kept his coats and work bags. I reached into the pocket of the brown overcoat he'd worn last week, the one he always claimed was too warm but still wore out of habit. And tucked in the side pocket, folded once and barely crumpled, was a small paper receipt. Dated 3 months ago. Jewelry Boutique, 7th Street. One item. Same SKU number as the earrings. I sat down right there on the floor. 3 months ago, we weren't shopping for anniversaries. We weren't even getting along. That was during the time we had barely been speaking. When he stayed out late and claimed he was working through things. I had assumed, stupidly, that he meant internally. But now I wasn't so sure. I opened my phone again. Checked her story one more time. It had been posted 6 hours ago, which meant it had gone up in the middle of the night, after our dinner. Not long after I had fallen asleep wearing those earrings. And now, here they were, immortalized on her page, a visual echo of everything I thought had been ours. I texted my best friend. Me, if someone gave you earrings for your anniversary, and the next day their ex posted a photo wearing the same ones, what would you think? She didn't reply right away. I didn't blame her. Who would know what to say? I set the earrings down on the bathroom counter. They looked smaller now. Cheaper. Tainted. I couldn't even look at them the same way. Every time I turned them over in my fingers, I pictured her smile in that mirror, her caption, her carefully staged image, not for him, but for me. She had known I'd see it. That was the point. It wasn't just that he had lied. It was that someone else knew he had. Someone else knew something about my relationship before I did. She had the upper hand. She always had, I realized. And he had let her keep it. I went back into the bedroom. He was still asleep, one arm draped across my side of the bed like he owned peace, like he had nothing to hide. I stood there and watched him for a long time. Not with hate. Not with anger. But with something quieter. Something colder. It wasn't the earrings. It was the pattern. And suddenly, I didn't want to just ask questions. I wanted answers. He woke up 2 hours later. I had already showered, changed, and cleaned the kitchen by then, not because I was in a good mood, but because I needed something to do with my hands. When I heard his footsteps shuffle into the hallway, I didn't turn around. I was rinsing a coffee mug at the sink when he came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist like nothing had changed. I didn't move. "Morning," he said, pressing his face into my neck. "You look good." "Do I?" I asked, rinsing the mug a second time just to buy a few more seconds of silence. He leaned against the counter, stretching like a man who'd earned his rest. "Last night was nice," he said. "You seemed really happy." I turned around, slowly. The earrings were in my hand. I held them up. "These," I said. "Where exactly did you get them?" He blinked. "I told you. That boutique on 7th. "When?" He paused. "A week ago." "Why?" I tilted my head. Just stared. He kept going, unsure of himself now. "I mean, not exactly a week. Maybe 10 days? It was last minute." "You bought them last minute," I repeated. "From the boutique on 7th. "Yeah." I held up the receipt. "Then explain why this receipt, which I found in your coat pocket, says you bought them 3 months ago." His face changed. Not panic. Not guilt. Just calculation. Like he was flipping through a mental drawer, searching for the version of the story he could get away with. "Okay," he said slowly. "I didn't want to say this, but I bought them for you back then. I was planning ahead." "Planning ahead?" "During the month we barely spoke? When you were barely coming home?" He shrugged. "I thought it might help." "And did you also think," I said, "that it might help to give the same earrings to your ex? Or did you just forget who they were meant for?" His mouth opened, but I didn't give him time. "I saw her post," I said. "This morning. Her mirror selfie. She was wearing these. Same box. Same pair. Same caption, practically aimed at me." His face flushed. "She's doing that to mess with you." "Is she?" I asked. "Or did you give her a pair first? And then recycle the leftover gift for me when things didn't work out?" "That's not true," I snapped. "Go ahead. Lie again." He didn't. He looked at the floor. Then at me. Then back at the floor. "I was going to return them," he muttered. You bought them for her, I said, my voice flat. That's the truth, isn't it? He nodded once. I gave her the earrings before we broke up, he said. But we ended things, and she never took them. Or maybe she gave them back. I honestly don't remember. And instead of buying something else, something real, something that wasn't drenched in another woman's fingerprints, you handed them to me like they meant something. He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't think it mattered. That was the moment I stopped speaking. Because there it was. The answer. The core of everything. It didn't matter, not to him. Not the gesture, not the meaning, not the memory attached to it. I wasn't getting a gift. I was getting a leftover. A placeholder. A performance. He stepped forward, but I stepped back. I'm not her, I said. And I'm not you. I remember things. I feel them. And I don't wear ghosts. I left the earrings on the counter. And for the first time in a very long time, I realized I was not angry because he lied, I was angry because I had believed him. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I walked out of the kitchen and sat down on the living room couch, the same one where we'd sat just the night before, where he had complimented those earrings like they meant something. Everything looked the same candles melted low on the table, same blanket I had draped over my lap during the show, same half-empty wine glass near the remote. But it felt different now. Like the room itself was embarrassed to still be holding the memory of something that had never been real. He stayed in the kitchen for a while, maybe waiting for me to come back. Maybe hoping I'd cool off, laugh it off, forgive him like I always did. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at nothing, letting the silence do what my voice didn't want to anymore. What stung most wasn't the earrings. It was the story behind them. The fact that he thought I wouldn't notice. Or worse, that he thought I would notice, and just wouldn't care. That I'd be so eager to feel special that I wouldn't look too closely. That I'd swallow the lie just to taste the sweetness of being remembered. I thought back to all the moments in our relationship that suddenly felt different now. The spontaneous weekend getaway that he booked at the last minute, the one where he seemed oddly familiar with the hotel layout. The inside jokes he swore were ours, but that I had always felt didn't quite fit. The restaurant he took me to on my birthday, where the waitress smiled at him like she'd seen him there before, and not with me. How many things in this relationship were recycled? How many smiles weren't meant for me? I looked down at my hands. They were still trembling a little. I wrapped them in the blanket and focused on my breathing. One inhale. One exhale. Keep the pieces together. Don't let the cracks show yet. Not until you're alone. He came into the room eventually, standing a few feet away like a child who knows he's broken something he can't fix. Look, he said, I messed up. I should have gotten something new. I didn't think you'd know. And I didn't think it'd matter. There it was again. It didn't matter. Those 3 words stuck in my chest like a rusted nail. I couldn't even bring myself to look at him. I turned my head and stared out the window, watching a pair of pigeons fluttering on the balcony railing. I need some air, I said. He stepped aside to let me pass. I walked out, barefoot, not even caring that the floor was cold. I stood on the balcony and closed my eyes. Let the morning breeze hit my face. Let it clear the fog from my thoughts. And standing there, it hit me, this wasn't just about the earrings. This wasn't about a gift. This was about worth. Mine. How many times had I lowered the bar just to keep the peace? How many excuses had I made for him when something didn't feel right? How many pieces of myself had I handed over, thinking love was about sacrifice? I thought about what my son would learn from watching this. About the kind of love he'd grow up thinking was normal. And I knew, in that moment, that staying silent wasn't strength. It was surrender. And I was done surrendering. I didn't storm out that day. I didn't pack a suitcase with clothes flying in every direction or slam the door behind me for dramatic effect. I didn't scream or curse or demand an apology he wasn't capable of giving. What I did instead was far quieter. And far more permanent. I stayed still for most of the day. Not out of weakness, but because I needed to move on intentionally, not reactively. That was the difference between who I used to be and who I was becoming. The old me would have argued, begged for an explanation, replayed every line he said looking for cracks I missed. But not this time. Not after the earrings. Not after the look on his face when I showed him the truth, not regret, not sorrow, just inconvenience. By evening, I made a list. Not of what to take, but of what not to forget, the lease agreement in my name, the receipts for the furniture I bought, the cat's vet documents, my son's school files. I wasn't just leaving, I was transitioning. Quietly, deliberately, without permission. Because the only thing louder than heartbreak is clarity. And for once, I had plenty of it. He tried to talk once more that evening. We were both in the hallway. He leaned against the doorframe like he always did when he wanted to look casual during conflict. I said I was sorry, he mumbled. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't mean to, but you did. Because you didn't care enough not to, I replied. He looked away. I'm not mad about the earrings, I said. I'm mad because I looked at you and saw a future, and you looked at me and saw a replacement. He tried to laugh it off, a nervous chuckle he always used when he felt cornered. That's dramatic. No, I said calmly. That's honest. I went to our room and gathered what I needed. No clothes, just the things that were mine in the truest sense. Letters from my son, the photo album of my mother, the little notebook where I kept my thoughts during the early days of our relationship, entries I now realized had more longing than joy. Before I left, I placed the earrings back in their box. Then I walked to the kitchen and dropped them into the donation bag we'd been meaning to give away. Not out of pettiness, out of refusal. I wouldn't carry someone else's memory on my ears again. I wouldn't let him see me wear them and feel like he got away with it. I wouldn't walk through life knowing something that once sat on another woman's skin now touched mine with the same story. No. I'd rather go bare. I stayed at my sister's for a week. She didn't ask questions. Just opened her door, handed me tea, and let me be. My son came back from his dad's the following weekend, and I explained things in the gentlest way I could. We're going to start fresh, I told him. And this time, it's going to be just ours. We found a little place not far from the school. A walk-up apartment with light that poured into the kitchen every morning. I got new curtains. I framed our photos. I took my time rebuilding what I didn't realize I had been slowly losing. Some nights I still hear his voice, not in memory, but in habit. The way trauma echoes even after the door is shut. But then I look at my son, or I sip coffee on my new porch, or I see my own eyes in the mirror again, not searching anymore, not begging, just aware. And I remember what it cost me to mistake attention for affection. He gave me earrings meant for another woman. But I gave myself back the life meant for me.